Yes,
Twitter people. Just 2 minutes. I only have the mental space for 2 minutes for that.
Do it. Let's do it. You know what? Let me get the intro going, and then you take over right after that, man. I love it already. I love it. Trade deadline season, man, making everybody crazy. What up, though, people? It is your boy, Brandon Dent, a.k.a. Detroit Kool-Aid. This is the Woodward Pistons podcast. Listen, we got content with Mr. Everything, Jeff Freddy, on the way. But right now, you guys know we're rocking out with the legend, and we're going to get that drum roll going. Hey, yo, shout out to the legend, Detroit News, Rod Beard. And look, bro, he's just already on fire. Take it away. The exasperation.
They live among us. It could be your neighbor. It could be the person you bump into at Home Depot. It could be the person that you're driving by on the freeway.
Man,
there are people among us who have said that Troy Weaver has done nothing. What has he done? And I don't even want to look up the tweets.
Bro, they got me like this, just shuddering. Like, I mean, what in the world?
These could be your friends. These could be parents that go to your kids' school. They look very normal, but you put a keyboard in front of them and you open Twitter, and they spew the most ridiculous. What has Troy done? I think what trades has he won? What trades has he won?
Man,
all of them. All of them.
All of them. Somebody said. I saw somebody say he whiffed on signing Kelly O. He said that was just an absolute miss. I was like, what?
Wait. And you handled it so much more diplomatically than I was, because when I saw it, it's like, wait a minute. Let me go back and read this. Is there a different Kelly O? Is there a Kelly O'Brien? Is there a Kelly Ostertag? Is there somebody that I'm missing? Because Kelly O is a win. Because don't read the comments. 4 words for the day, for the week. This is your mantra for the week. Don't read the comments. And the other 4 word is they live among us. It's the craziest stuff. I can see people criticizing Dwayne. I get it.
Yeah, I can understand.
There are people who say that we are propping up Troy Weaver because what has he done? This team is a 20-win team. What talent has he done? How about your team has young talent that other teams are calling about, and you're in a desirable cap position, and you have pieces at the trade deadline or in the offseason that other people are going to want, and you can go out. This is what a rebuild is you put yourself in a position to be able to do something.
Preaching. Is he preaching?
Are you going to win 40 games when your best player gets injured? Not even your best player that stirs the drink and runs everything in your offense. Are you going to win 40 games when that person gets injured? It was improbable you were going to win 40 with him. But without him, you're going to have a stinker of a season, and there's no difference between 12 wins and 22 wins. It's not going to matter. You could at least position yourself to be in a lottery position to get Victor. Get sicker for Victor. That's the best that we can do.
Go.
If you are a Pistons fan, that's the best thing you can hope for, and try to have some development in between. We say every time, if he missed on Killian, the jury isn't completely out. But if you're going to say he whiffed, he lucked into Cade, and anybody could have done that, and the only pick that he got right was Jalen Duren. Are you kidding me? I cannot. I tweeted it. I said I cannot with people because
bro, it's like you're saying all my thoughts. So I'm just sitting here, just making sure I give all of the signs of affirmation as you continue to go on the diatribe, because it's just like I don't know what people are looking at here. If Killian Hayes is a miss, it's like they just absolutely, while they're saying with their beef stew shirts on, they're saying Troy Weaver, he hasn't done anything. He missed on Killian Hayes. I'm like, bro, where did beef stew come from? You know, it's Sadiq Bey. You got teams calling about Sadiq Bey, calling about, hey, we think he's a good player. Listen, bro, when the Knicks are calling about a player, Tom Thibodeau and his Knicks, you know what I mean? That's a totally different thing. And they're calling about Sadiq Bey. And we know that their teams and the characteristics that they have, they continue to come in here and put it on full display. We talked about it, man, whether it's a practice, whether it's a shoot around, whether it's preseason, whether it's a game, the Knicks are coming in to boat race the Pistons. And they play with a completely different level of physicality. And that's the one thing we started noticing about Sadiq Bey. Whether people think his defense is where it needs to be or not, we've seen him take some really big steps forward in the physicality department, to the point that he's banging with guys like Giannis, man. He's getting down there and holding his own. Like, is anyone going to stop these guys? No. But the types of impacts that you want to see a guy have as it relates to not going out there and letting things down, it's like these are things that the Knicks are probably looking at. These are things that some of these other squads are looking at. They came in and said Bojan. They said this is the price. They came in and said Sadiq. Like, why are they coming and asking for Sadiq? Isn't this something we always talk about where we go and we pull up our trade machine and oftentimes we say, well, where are the players on your squad that other teams want? Troy has those guys for once. Like, man, I sat here and did the article the other day. And I was like, even though this first draft class, you probably wouldn't consider them the core four, I think the term has to be expanded because Troy has finally brought in draft picks that we don't have to just ride till the wheels fall off because they aren't meeting the expectation. Or the GM or the team does not know how to repurpose, how to still get value out of this thing. That's what I've absolutely loved about Troy Weaver is, you know, when no one's going to be perfect, who are they going to be? To me, that's when life starts. How do you handle the imperfections? How do you handle when you have a miss? How do you handle when you are down? Because we've seen past GMs kind of get in the mud and continue to wallow in the mud and never get up because they just don't know how. They're good people. They try. Bless their hearts. Where's it at here, man? I love him. I love him. I love him. I do. But he couldn't get out of the mud. It got to a point where it's like, wow. Troy is like, all right, Killian. And what they start saying, hey, you know, we're going to have to work with him a little bit. And then bada bing, bada boom, Sadiq and Isaiah Stewart. And then Cade, people can say, oh, he lucked in the Cade. He fell in the Cade. You remember all the chatter before the draft? I remember doing shows where we were the ones saying, no, he's the pick. He's the right guy. And people saying, nah, I think Jalen Green, blah, blah, blah. I remember even national media, and they even tried to drum up stuff. This wasn't just, this is push button. Troy Weaver came out and said, this wasn't just push button. We had to go through a litany of things. And ultimately what we fell on was the fact that Cade Cunningham was a connector. This is an elite quality that a lot of people hey, we're not going to give this to Cade. There are other players that came before, and Rod, I've been on this for a long time since we've been doing this, that Cade is a special player. Now we see it. We see that, man. So it's just like, and then do we have to? People, oh, Jaden Ivey fell into his hands. Well, what about Jalen Duren? Well, like, if you want to say Jaden Ivey fell into his hands, because that wasn't what people were saying beforehand. Now that we see him out here cooking, oh, he got lucky there. That was the right pick. That wasn't what y'all was saying. We were doing the draft coverage. Then you want to come to Jalen Duren, and it's just like, I don't know.
Is Jalen Duren a top 5 or 6 pick if you do the redraft right now? Is he a top 5 or 6?
That's what all of the other pundits are saying. You want to look at all of the rookie rankings. If you want to look at the redrafts, I mean, they're saying it. They're saying that the Pistons have 2 of the top 5 rookies in this draft class.
So look at this. Did you watch the Atlanta show with
Childish, Donald Glover?
Yeah, with Donald Glover. There was an episode where he bartered. He had a cell phone, and he traded the cell phone for like a sword. He traded the sword for something else, and he eventually ended up with like some puppies, some expensive kind of rare puppies.
Yeah,
and he was like, "Why did you get me puppies?" And so a little bit later, it turned into, well, these puppies ended up being worth like $1,200. So your $100 phone turned into $1,200, but it took some flips. So along the way, you look at things and say, well, I got a sword. Why do I need this sword? And that's kind of how Troy has been doing stuff. Why do I need Josh Jackson? What am I doing with Trey Lyles? You're flipping them.
Do you remember
other
the people?
stuff?
Do you remember when Trey Lyles was here? And we were talking about it from an analytical standpoint, like, hey, they can actually run pick and rolls now. He was like the pick and roll stopgap. It wasn't really him and Cade, but Killian's game started to kind of get a little bit of traction. Some of the other guards started to get a little bit of traction. And every time the ball touched his hands, it was just beeline to the rim. It was like he got it in the middle, right to the rim, shooting free. He didn't even care. He walked back like, yep, I took that shot. You know what I mean? And then they flipped him for Marvin Bagley, who, you know, that's a name that I haven't really heard come up a lot around this deadline or for a potential candidate to be traded later, because I like Marvin Bagley, but that's just an asset sitting there. Like, you know what I mean? That's one of those, potentially, if Troy does what Troy does, can flip him for potentially a low-end first-round pick, a high, you know, couple second-round picks, a young player or something of that nature. I wasn't even, as people continue to talk about the different names, I was like, you know what? Whether he wants to keep these guys or not, he has a whole lot of talent that fits every range that people could be looking for across the spectrum of cap sheet, like cap value. So you want a low end, you want a low value player, you know, in terms of cap. I got Nerlens Noel. I have Marvin Bagley on a pretty decent deal. I have Sadiq Bey, obviously, on this still very manageable deal. He's probably gonna have to get paid soon. But you know what I mean? Bojan Bogdanovic on $20 million. That is so manageable.
We've got Alec Burks for about $10.5 million.
There you go.
Who was kind of the
spectrum of the cap sheet. What do you want? I got a whole menu.
So people who want to be keyboard GMs don't understand. You don't just need names and players. You need slots on a cap sheet. You need a guy who makes about 10 million. That's what I was getting at. Guys. You need a guy who's at like 20 million. So the when you rewind a couple of years and you look at Drummond, you look at Blake, you look at Reggie, you look at Tobias, you had bloated contracts that didn't kind of fit, and you got to a point where you had to pay them. For everybody that hates Andre Drummond, the reason he got that contract is because they messed around and they had to pay him at a certain point. And that's where GMs make and break, is when they say, you're up for the new deal. Yep. Do I give you a new deal at an exorbitant rate, or do I give you something that's reasonable? And this is what you're going to see from Troy when you get Sadiq, when you get Stu, and when you get Killian. Are those going to be reasonable contracts that you can kind of slot and move around, or are these just going to be an overpay? And even when you say he's overpaid people like a Jeremy, what ended up happening with that? Used him and got the usefulness out of him. And when it came time to flip, you get a draft pick that turns into a cornerstone piece that you targeted. So the people that say Troy doesn't know what he's doing and what has he done, he's positioned you. It's not coming to fruition yet, but he's positioned you to do something when it happens. And when this turns around, it's going to be a quick turnaround because you're in position to do it. And
just like the Cavs, they went from like a nothing team to just instantly we're a playoff team after years of doing the same stuff. We did that profile, we did that episode. Years of kind of just trudging along, getting your pieces, shuffling things, having pieces across the spectrum of the cap sheet, so that you can make and work whatever deal you need, and not just pieces, but players that other teams want. People want Alec Burks, people want Bojan, so you can actually improve your team with the assets that Troy has here. And this is what you want. This year was always the appetizer, and it looks good. If people are sitting here trying to get full off of this season, then you played yourself. This was always the appetizer season. That's why you could tell Marvin Bagley and Cade Cunningham, hit the showers for the season. Let's get right. Hey, you're going to be shooting and practicing and playing before the season even ends, so we can make sure that this whole off season is you, the new draft pick, whoever we spend this money on, whoever we acquire, you know, any of that stuff. That we're going to be right going into next season. Everybody, even national pundits, people are starting to say, you know what? Next year, this team is supposed to be something different. And that's what we've all stated. Before the season, we all said they're 2 to 3 years out. Now the season hits and everybody acts like this was supposed to be that second or that third year. And we're just not there yet. We're not there yet. We are getting there.
But you know what it is? It's the person who looks out their window and says, that's a nice lawn out front, as opposed to the person who goes and cuts the grass and waters the grass and puts the fertilizer on and who does all of the stuff. So the people we're talking about on social media are the ones who just
at first.
Yeah. Yeah, and they drive by and they say, "Oh, look at that. That's beautiful. How did it get that way?" Well, it took a few years of kind of figuring it out, and you got to cultivate it. You got to make it work. You can't just say it's not a Kool-Aid sort of thing. You just add water and stir it, put water, sugar, and Kool-Aid packet, and then just stir it, and that's it. That's not how rebuilds work. And this is what people said they wanted. They said they wanted a rebuild. This is what it looks like. It's not some 2 years and 2 draft picks and you got what you want. You got to see, and we've been preaching this all season. You have to wait and see the pieces that fit and the pieces that don't. We had long said Sadiq is definitely a cornerstone piece. Well, you know who else is? Boyan. And if they play the same position, they play the same style, you know what you have now? You have an asset that you can look at and say, maybe they can play together sometimes, but maybe one of them gets traded. And
options.
But let's make Boyan a little bit more stable by giving him the contract and a reasonable contract so that if we do decide to deal him and a team really wants to overpay, that we can do it and it's not going to kill us. Yeah. That's what GMing is about. It's not this drive by, look at the lawn. Oh, that looks kind of, they need to water that. That's not how you care for stuff is driving by, looking at it. You have to take care and cultivate what you're trying to do. And that's what Troy is doing with this team. Yeah. You can criticize Dwayne Casey, but you have to do it in context and say, hey, what does he have to work with? You have Jaden Ivey that you were saying, hey, we want him to work on his shooting. There wasn't a plan in there for him to work on dribbling and to be a point guard. That wasn't part of the plan, but you pivot based off the situation. And you're going to
know if he could do those things.
So now is that going to help when he's on the perimeter next year and Cade is back that he's been handling and facilitating? You make the lemons and lemonade that you can. And people,
they're not used to a GM that can get ahead of things. They're not used to a GM that can handle things. They're not even used to a GM who they go, you give Jeremy Grant $20 million. You give Bojan $20 million. Well, yeah, because guess who can't come and ask for more than that? Because, you know what I'm saying? Like, these other rookies and players who want money, Troy's setting, hey, this is what it is. You want more than Bojan? Get out of here. Come on.
Your GM
and I can trade you because you're on a good, friendly deal.
Your GM is not Matt Millen. I'll say it that way. It's not Matt Millen. That's your GM. He knows what he's doing. Believe in it. Somebody said he was the lackey in OKC. The lackey. I'm like, for real? Do you know the talent that they drafted? And he's the talent.
Yeah.
Don't read the comments.
It is crazy. All right, let me wrap this up. You guys, Rod was on fire today. Shout out Rod Beard, but let me get it going. It's your boy Brandon Dent, a.k.a. Detroit Kool-Aid. We're going to check in with Mr. Iafrady, Jeff Iafrady, Mr. Everything Later. And for the legend, Detroit News Rod Beard, hey, yo, we're going to see you guys next time.